Shadows in the park. The night was eerily quiet as Officer Clark patrolled the streets of Meadowvale, a small town that had seen better days. Its once thriving neighborhoods were now plagued by economic downturns, leaving more families struggling and more children slipping through the cracks. The streetlights flickered occasionally, casting a pale glow over empty sidewalks and abandoned storefronts. Clark had been with the force for nearly 2 decades, and he knew these streets better than anyone. He had seen it all, or so he thought. As he guided his patrol car past the local park, something caught his eye. Amid the rustling leaves and dim light, he noticed a small figure curled up on one of the benches. He squinted, unsure if it was even a person or just a brace. But as he slowed the car, his breath caught. It was a young girl, lying on her side, huddled in a ball to protect herself from the cold autumn air. Clark let out a heavy sigh. He had just started his shift, and this was the last thing he needed. Another runaway, probably. Or maybe just a troubled kid, out late when she should have been home. The night shifts were tough enough without having to deal with what seemed like another sad case. He pulled over, grabbed his flashlight, and stepped out of the car. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the bench and the small form lying atop it. The girl looked frail, her clothes dirty and too thin for the chilly night. She couldn't have been more than 8 or 9 years old. Her face was smudged with dirt, and her tangled hair clung to her cheeks. Clark approached cautiously, years of experience guiding him to be gentle but firm. He had learned that children in these situations were often scared, and any wrong move could send them running. "Hey there, kid," he called softly, his voice steady but authoritative. "You can't be sleeping out here. It's not safe." The girl stirred, her eyes blinking open slowly. For a moment, she seemed disoriented, but when she saw the uniformed figure standing over her, fear flashed in her eyes. She scrambled to sit up, pressing herself tightly against the back of the bench, as if trying to make herself disappear into the metal. "Hey, it's all right," Clark said, softening his tone. "I'm Officer Clark. What's your name?" The girl didn't respond. Her large, dark eyes stared at him, filled with a mixture of fear and defiance. Clark could tell she was scared, but something deeper lingered in her gaze, something that went beyond the usual fear he saw in runaways or troubled kids. She was guarding herself, holding on to some inner secret with every ounce of strength she had. Clark crouched down to her level, trying to make himself seem less intimidating. His knees protested the movement, a reminder that he wasn't as young as he used to be. But he kept his posture low and his voice gentle. "You don't need to be afraid of me," he said. "I'm here to help, but I need you to tell me your name." The girl's lips trembled, but she remained silent. Clark noticed the small backpack wedged behind her on the bench. It was old, worn, and overstuffed, as if she had packed everything she owned in a hurry. His heart sank a little. "Look, I'm not here to hurt you, but I need to know why you're out here all alone. Do you have a home nearby? Where are your parents?" At the mention of parents, the girl's expression changed. Her eyes darted away from Clark, staring down at her hands, which were clasped tightly in her lap. She shook her head, just barely. I can't go home," she whispered, her voice so quiet Clark almost didn't catch it. The hair on the back of Clark's neck stood up. He'd heard those words before, too many times, and they never led to anything good. Kids who couldn't go home usually had a reason, and that reason was often ugly. He leaned in closer, trying to keep his voice calm and non-threatening. "Why not?" he asked gently. "Why can't you go home, kid?" The girl hesitated, her small frame trembling under the weight of her secret. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, but Clark could see the fear lurking just beneath the surface. She looked around, as if searching for an escape, but there was nowhere for her to go. "I can't," she said again, more firmly this time. "Please don't make me go back." Clark's gut twisted. He could see that she was genuinely terrified, and his mind raced through the possibilities. Was she being abused? Neglected? Had she run away from something terrible? He had encountered all kinds of situations in his time on the force, but each one left a mark. "You don't have to go back right now," he said softly, his voice taking on a rare tone of tenderness. "But I can't leave you out here either. It's not safe." The girl's eyes filled with tears, though she tried to blink them away. Clark could see her resolve crumbling, her small body trembling as she hugged herself tightly. He had seen hardened criminals break down less painfully than this little girl was about to. "Come on," he said, standing up and extending a hand. "Let's get you somewhere warm, and then we can talk, okay?" The girl hesitated, her eyes darting between his hand and his face. For a moment, Clark thought she might bolt. But then, slowly, she nodded and reached out her small, trembling hand to take his. As Clark led her back to the patrol car, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Whatever had driven this child to sleep in a park on a cold night wasn't something easily fixed. He knew he was about to be pulled into something far more complicated and heartbreaking than a simple runaway case. Once they were seated in the car, Clark turned up the heat, trying to get her warmed up. She sat quietly, staring out the window, still clutching her backpack tightly to her chest. He glanced over at her, trying to figure out what to say next. "You didn't tell me your name yet," he said, gently breaking the silence. After a long pause, the girl whispered, "Tasha." "Tasha," Clark repeated. "That's a pretty name. Can you tell me where you're from, Tasha? Maybe I can help." She didn't answer, her eyes still fixed on something far outside the car window. Clark sighed, realizing it was going to take more than a few questions to get to the heart of her story. But something deep in his chest told him that whatever it wasn't going to be easy to hear. The weight of secrets. The patrol car hummed softly as Officer Clark drove away from the park, the glow of the streetlights illuminating the road ahead. Tasha sat quietly in the passenger seat, her small form hunched over, clutching her backpack tightly. The warmth of the car wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, yet it did little to ease the tension etched on her young face. Clark cast sidelong glances at her as they navigated the quiet streets of Meadowvale, each glance revealing the different layer of her distress. Tasha's eyes were wide and distant, as if she were looking past the passing buildings and into a world of her own, a world that, he suspected, held dark memories. "Okay, Tasha," he said gently, breaking the silence that had settled between them. "Let's find somewhere safe to talk. I know a place where you can have some hot chocolate and feel a bit more comfortable. How does that sound?" Her gaze flickered toward him for a brief moment, uncertainty playing across her features. But then she nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly, and he could see a hint of something, hope, perhaps, shimmering behind her guarded expression. As they drove, Clark tried to maintain a light conversation, asking simple questions about her favorite foods, colors, or animals, anything to distract her from the reality they were escaping. Tasha responded with half-hearted nods and whispers, her mind clearly elsewhere. Finally, Clark pulled into the parking lot of a small diner, Molly's Place, a local favorite known for its warm atmosphere and even warmer coffee. The neon sign flickered above, promising comfort and familiarity. Clark parked the car and turned off the engine. "Come on," he said, trying to coax a smile from her. "You'll love Molly's hot chocolate. It's the best in town." Tasha hesitated, her eyes darting toward the entrance of the diner. Clark could see her anxiety mounting. She was on high alert, ready to flee at the slightest hint of danger. But he stepped out of the car and held the door open for her, extending a hand in invitation. Slowly, she unbuckled her seatbelt and climbed out. The chill of the night air greeted them, but Clark noticed that Tasha's shoulders seemed to relax slightly as they approached the warm glow of the diner. He opened the door, and the scent of fresh coffee and baked goods wafted out, wrapping around them like a welcoming embrace. Inside, the diner was bustling with activity, families chatting over plates of pancakes, couples sharing intimate moments, and a few late-night patrons sipping coffee while reading newspapers. The atmosphere was alive, a stark contrast to the desolation of the park. "Hey, Molly," Clark called out, waving to the owner, a warm woman in her 50s with a round face and a welcoming smile. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun, and her apron was dotted with flour and remnants of the day's baking. "Clark, what brings you in tonight?" she replied, her voice a comforting melody amidst the clattering of dishes. "Just a little rescue mission," he said, gesturing toward Tasha, who stood shyly by his side, her eyes wide as she took in the sights and sounds of the diner. "This is Tasha. She needs some hot chocolate and a safe place to talk." Molly's smile softened as she crouched down to Tasha's level. "Hi there, sweetheart. You're in good hands with Officer Clark. How about we get you the biggest hot chocolate we have? I'll even throw in some whipped cream." Tasha's lips twitched, the corners almost lifting in a smile. "Okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Clark watched as Molly whisked away to the kitchen, her warmth spilling into the space around them. He turned to Tasha, who still seemed apprehensive. He pulled out a booth seat and gestured for her to sit down. "It's okay. You can relax here. Nobody's going to hurt you." Tasha slid into the seat but kept her backpack close, as if it were her lifeline. Clark noticed her fingers were still trembling slightly. He took a seat across from her, his eyes searching hers for any sign of reassurance. "Tasha," he began gently, "I know you're scared, and it's okay to feel that way. I want you to know that you can talk to me about anything. I'm here to help you." For a moment, the din of the diner faded into the background as Tasha's gaze dropped to the table. She fiddled with the hem of her shirt, taking a deep breath as if she were gathering the courage to speak. Can you promise not to make me go back?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. Clark felt a pang in his heart. "I can't make any promises, Tasha, but I promise to listen to you first. Can you tell me why you don't want to go home?" The weight of her secret hung heavily in the air, and Clark could see her internal struggle. She looked around the diner, her eyes landing on families laughing together, children playing, and couples enjoying their meals. It was a world she was no longer a part of. I ran away," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "I couldn't stay there anymore." "Why not?" He pressed gently, his heart aching for her. Tasha took another deep breath, her small hands clenching the edges of the table. "My mom, she gets really mad sometimes. And when she gets mad, she hurts me." Clark's heart sank further. He had heard too many stories like this, but each one felt like a fresh stab to his conscience. "Hurts you how, Tasha?" Her eyes welled up with tears, and she bit her lip as if trying to suppress the flood of emotions that threatened to spill out. She hits me," she whispered, the words tumbling out in a rush. "And sometimes she says things that make me feel really small. Like I don't matter." The confession hung in the air, heavy and raw. Clark felt anger swell within him. Anger not just at Tasha's mother, but at a system that often failed to protect children like her. "You do matter, Tasha. You're brave for coming out here and finding help. I thought I could find a place to be safe," she continued, her voice trembling. "But then I fell asleep, and I didn't know where else to go. I thought if I just kept running, I could find somewhere better." Clark felt tears prick at his eyes, and he struggled to maintain his composure. "Tasha, you're not alone anymore. I promise you, we can figure this out together. There are people who want to help you." Just then, Molly returned with a steaming mug of hot chocolate topped with a generous swirl of whipped cream. "Here you go, sweetheart. Just the way I like it. Lots of love and sweetness." She set the mug in front of Tasha, who looked up with wide eyes. "Thank you," Tasha murmured, a small smile breaking through her earlier fear as she wrapped her hands around the warm mug. The heat seeped into her palms, a small comfort in the midst of her turmoil. "Drink that up, and then we'll figure out the next steps, okay?" Clark said, relieved to see a flicker of joy in her expression, however fleeting it might be. Tasha took a tentative sip, the warmth spreading through her body. It was a simple pleasure, but it felt like a beacon of hope amidst the storm she had been weathering. As she drank, Clark considered his next steps. He needed to ensure Tasha was safe, not just from her mother, but also from the very world that had pushed her into such desperate circumstances. He thought of the resources available in Meadowvale, the local child protective services, shelters, and support groups for children who had faced abuse or neglect. They had to be part of the solution. Once Tasha had finished her hot chocolate, Clark leaned forward, ready to guide her through the next steps. "Tasha, I need you to trust me. There are people who can help you. I can take you to a safe place where you won't have to worry about going back home right now. But it's important that we get you the support you need. Are you okay with that?" Tasha looked uncertain, fear flickering in her eyes. "What if they send me back? What if my mom finds me?" Clark's heart ached for her. He could see the terror of losing the small semblance of safety she had found. "I promise you, we'll do everything we can to keep you safe. You deserve a chance to be happy, Tasha." Tasha nodded, though her expression remained somber. Clark felt a surge of determination. This was the moment to show her that help was possible, that she wasn't just a child lost in the system. "Let's get you some clothes and a place to stay," he said, his voice steady. "I'll be right by your side, every step of the way." Tasha's gaze met his, a flicker of hope igniting in her dark eyes. "Okay," she whispered. "I trust you." And with those simple words, Clark knew he had to do everything in his power to protect her. He would navigate the bureaucratic maze, push for her safety, and stand as a barrier between Tasha and the world that had failed her so far. As they left Molly's place, stepping back into the cool night air, Clark felt the weight of their shared journey ahead. They were bound together now, and he was determined to make a difference in her life, no matter how difficult the road would be. For Tasha, and for every child like her, he would fight against the shadows that sought to engulf them. The echoes of home. As Officer Clark and Tasha walked toward the patrol car, the weight of the night settled around them like a heavy fog. The streetlights flickered overhead, casting fleeting shadows that danced across the pavement. Each step was a step into the unknown, and Tasha remained close to Clark, her small frame still trembling slightly from the chill of the night and the weight of her revelations. Clark opened the passenger door, and Tasha slid inside, clutching her backpack to her chest like a shield. He could sense her apprehension. Each breath she took was laden with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Clark took a deep breath himself, feeling the responsibility of her safety settle firmly on his shoulders. He had dealt with plenty of difficult cases over the years, but there was something about Tasha that resonated deeply within him. He was determined to make sure her story didn't end in tragedy. As they drove, the streets of Meadowvale began to blur into a haze of streetlights and shadows. Clark glanced at Tasha, who stared out the window, her eyes following the passing scenery. He could almost see the wheels turning in her mind, grappling with everything that had happened and everything that was about to change. "Tasha," he said, trying to keep his tone light yet compassionate, "can you tell me a little more about your home? What's it like?" She hesitated, her fingers digging into the fabric of her backpack. After a moment, she turned her gaze away from the window and looked at him. "It's complicated," she said quietly. "Complicated how?" Clark encouraged gently, sensing that this was a crucial moment for her to share more. Tasha took a deep breath, her small shoulders rising and falling with the weight of her words. "My mom. She used to be really nice. We'd go to the park, and she'd take me for ice cream. But then, something changed." Clark nodded, urging her to continue. "What do you mean? What changed?" She paused, the memories playing out behind her eyes. "After my dad left, things got harder. My mom started working longer hours, and she got stressed. I think she started drinking a lot too." Tasha's voice quivered as she spoke. "Sometimes she would come home angry. I'd try to be quiet, but it didn't matter. She would yell at me for the smallest things, like if I didn't clean my room or if I accidentally spilled something." Clark's heart ached at her words. He had seen the effects of parental stress and substance abuse before, families unraveling under pressure, children caught in the crossfire. "That sounds really hard, Tasha," You didn't deserve that. I tried to be good, Tasha continued, tears glistening in her eyes. I did everything I could to make her happy, but nothing worked. And then she started hitting me. The last words came out in a whisper, heavy with pain. Clark felt a wave of anger wash over him. He had seen far too many cases like this, but each time it was a gut punch. You're so brave for telling me this, Tasha. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not your fault. She nodded, tears spilling over as she swiped at her cheeks with the back of her hand. I thought if I ran away, maybe she would notice I was gone and change. I just wanted her to love me again. Clark's heart broke for her. The desperation in her words spoke of a deep yearning for love and connection that every child deserved. Running away is a big step. You're so young, Tasha. You shouldn't have to carry that burden alone. They drove in silence for a while, the sound of the engine humming softly in the background. Clark focused on the road ahead, his mind racing with thoughts about the best way to ensure Tasha's safety. He needed to find her a place where she could heal, where she could be surrounded by people who would love and protect her. After a few minutes, he turned onto a quieter street, heading toward the local police station. I know a safe place we can go where they will help you, he said, trying to reassure her. They have counselors and people who understand what you're going through. They can help you find a better situation, Tasha. What if my mom comes looking for me? She asked, fear flickering in her eyes. Clark met her gaze with conviction. That's why I'm here. I'll make sure you're safe. I promise I won't let anything happen to you. When they arrived at the police station, Clark parked the car and turned to Tasha. Stay close to me, okay? It's going to be all right. Tasha nodded, but her eyes still held a mixture of apprehension and fear. Clark reached out, taking her hand in his, small and fragile, yet filled with a fierce spirit. Together, they stepped into the station, where the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a stark glow across the bustling room. Inside, the station was a flurry of activity. Officers bustled about, phones rang, and the sound of voices filled the air. Clark felt a sense of urgency as he approached the front desk. Officer Morgan. He called out, waving to a familiar figure. Officer Morgan was a burly man with a kind face, one who had spent years working with youth in the community. Clark, what's going on? Officer Morgan asked, stepping away from the desk, concern etched across his features as he took in Tasha's tear-streaked face. This is Tasha, Clark said, kneeling down to her level again. She needs help. Can we get her connected with someone who can talk to her? Of course, Officer Morgan replied, his voice warm and reassuring. Tasha, you're safe here. We have a program that can help you. Would you like that? Tasha nodded slowly, her eyes wide as she took in the bustling atmosphere of the station. Clark watched her closely, noting how the tension in her shoulders seemed to ease just a fraction. Maybe this was the first step in the right direction. All right, let me get someone for you, Officer Morgan said, heading toward the back of the station. Clark turned back to Tasha, his heart aching for her. You're doing so well, Tasha. You're really brave for coming here. You're going to be okay. As they waited, Tasha began to fidget with her backpack, her fingers tracing the worn fabric. Clark's eyes softened, remembering how small and vulnerable she seemed just hours before. He wondered what else she had packed away, not just in that bag but in her heart. What memories, what dreams, what fears were hidden beneath the surface. Before long, Officer Morgan returned with a woman in her 30s, her name tag reading Linda. She had warm, kind eyes and a calming presence that seemed to envelop Tasha. Hi there, Tasha. I'm Linda. I work with children who need a little extra help. Why don't you come with me, and we can chat in a quieter place? Tasha hesitated, glancing up at Clark, as if seeking permission. He nodded encouragingly. It's okay, Tasha. I'll be right here when you need me. With a deep breath, Tasha stood up and followed Linda toward the back of the station, leaving Clark standing at the front desk. As she walked away, he felt a mixture of hope and dread. He wanted to protect her from everything she had experienced, But he knew that healing wouldn't come easy. The path ahead would be filled with challenges, but Tasha had taken the first brave step by seeking help. Clark leaned against the desk, watching as Tasha disappeared into the room with Linda. He felt the weight of his responsibility pressing down on him. He had seen countless children go through the system, but he knew that each one was unique. Each one had a story that mattered. Just then, Officer Morgan returned, standing beside Clark. "You did good, bringing her in. Kids like her need advocates, and it looks like she finally found one in you." Clark nodded, his mind racing. What happens next? I don't want her to fall through the cracks like so many others. Morgan placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We'll connect her with a social worker who specializes in these cases. They'll assess her situation and work on a safety plan. It's a process, but she's in good hands now." "Thanks, Morgan. I just hope she feels safe here," Clark said, still watching the closed door where Tasha had disappeared. "She will," Morgan replied. "You did more for her tonight than most people realize. Sometimes, just knowing someone cares can make all the difference." As the minutes ticked by, Clark's thoughts spiraled through various scenarios. He wondered about Tasha's future, about the life she could lead if only she could escape the darkness of her past. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had been given a second chance, not just for Tasha, but for himself. He wanted to fight for her, to be her shield against the storm. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the door opened and Linda stepped out, her expression a mixture of compassion and determination. "Clark, can we talk for a moment?" "Of course," he replied, following her to a quieter corner of the station. "First off, Tasha is a brave girl. She's been through a lot, and it's going to take time for her to process everything. But I believe she can heal if she has the right support," Linda said, her voice steady. Clark nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "What can we do to help her? I don't want her to end up back with her mother." Linda sighed, glancing back toward the door. "We'll need to assess her home situation further. If we determine that she's in immediate danger, we can work on a safety plan, possibly placing her in a foster home. It's all about ensuring she's safe first." "Foster home," Clark echoed, his heart heavy. "I just hope she doesn't feel abandoned again." Linda placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "We'll do everything we can to make sure she knows she's not alone. You've already made a significant impact just by being here for her tonight. That means the world." As they spoke, Clark felt a surge of determination. He would not let Tasha slip through the cracks like so many others had. "I want to be involved in her case. I want to help however I can." Linda smiled, appreciation shining in her eyes. "We'll definitely need advocates like you in her corner. You can help by staying connected with her, checking in on her progress, and being someone she can trust. It will mean everything to her." With renewed purpose, Clark nodded. "I won't let her down. I promise." As the night wore on, the shadows in the police station began to shift. For the first time, Clark felt a flicker of hope, a glimmer of possibility. The fight for Tasha's future had just begun, and he was determined to see it through. He would be her protector, her champion, and together, they would navigate the storm, hand in hand. The healing path. The sun rose slowly over Meadowvale, painting the sky in soft hues of pink and gold. Inside the police station, a sense of urgency hummed through the air as officers moved about, preparing for another day. But for Officer Clark, today felt different. It marked the beginning of Tasha's journey toward healing, and he was determined to be there for her every step of the way. As Clark arrived for his shift, he felt a surge of adrenaline. The night before had left him restless, his mind racing with thoughts of Tasha's story. He was eager to hear how she had fared after their initial meeting with Linda. Had she opened up more? Was she feeling safe? He headed straight for the desk where Officer Morgan sat, sorting through paperwork. "Have you heard anything about Tasha?" Clark asked, barely able to contain his anticipation. Morgan looked up, his brow furrowing in thought. "Yes, she had a rough night, but I heard she's doing a bit better this morning." Linda's been working with her since you left. Is she still here? Clark asked, his heart racing. Yeah, she's in the conference room. Linda thought it would be best for you to meet with her once she's done. It sounds like Tasha opened up a little more about her home situation. Clark felt a mix of relief and anxiety wash over him. Good. I want to make sure she feels comfortable and safe. Just give her some time. She's been through a lot, Morgan advised, offering a sympathetic smile. Thanks, Morgan. I'll be in the conference room. Clark nodded and made his way to the designated room, where a warm light filtered through the blinds. Inside, Tasha sat at the table with Linda, her small frame hunched over as she drew absent-mindedly on a piece of paper. The sight tugged at Clark's heartstrings. He wanted to protect her from the world's harsh realities, yet here she was, already confronting them head-on. Hey, Tasha, Clark said softly as he stepped into the room. She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise, a flicker of recognition breaking through her earlier apprehension. How are you doing today? Tasha shrugged, her expression a mix of vulnerability and defiance. I don't know. It's weird. Linda smiled encouragingly. That's okay. Weird is normal when you're experiencing something new and different. It's a safe space here. No one's going to hurt. Tasha glanced at Linda, who gave her an encouraging nod. Maybe I can tell you more about my mom, she suggested hesitantly. Of course, Clark said gently. I'm here to listen. Tasha took a deep breath, her fingers nervously tracing the edges of her drawing. I used to love going to the park with her. We have so much fun. But then, things got dark. Her voice quivered as memories bubbled to the surface. After my dad left, it felt like a part of her went missing too. She would sit on the couch and cry for hours, and I didn't know what to do. I tried to cheer her up, but nothing worked. Clark listened intently, his heart aching for her. That sounds really tough, Tasha. You were just a kid, and it's not your job to take care of her. But I wanted to, she said, her voice a whisper. I thought if I made her happy again, everything would be okay. But then she started yelling. Sometimes she would say things that made me feel like I didn't belong there. What kind of things? Clark asked, keeping his tone gentle. She would say I was just like my dad, Tasha replied, tears welling in her eyes. That I was a disappointment. It made me feel like I wasn't good enough. I wanted to disappear. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a fierce determination flashing across her face. That's why I ran away. I thought maybe if I left, she would realize how much I cared. Maybe she would see I was trying to help her. Clark's heart broke as he watched her struggle with the weight of her emotions. You are good enough, Tasha. You always have been. It's not your fault what happened with your mom. You deserve to be loved and cared for, just like any other kid. She nodded slowly, her expression softening slightly. But I don't know how to be happy anymore. We can work on that together, Clark said, feeling a surge of hope. You don't have to figure everything out right now. Healing takes time, and it's okay to take it one step at a time. Linda chimed in. You're in a safe place, Tasha. We have resources available to help you find your happiness again. We can talk about activities you like, things you enjoy. We can start rebuilding from there. Tasha's eyes flickered with uncertainty. Like what? Like art, Clark suggested, glancing at her drawing. You're clearly talented. Have you ever thought about taking an art class? Tasha's gaze drifted back to her drawing, a hint of a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. I used to love drawing. I forgot about it, I guess. Let's bring it back, Linda said, her enthusiasm contagious. There are programs that focus on art therapy. It's a wonderful way to express yourself and work through your feelings. Clark watched as Tasha considered this. He could see the wheels turning in her mind. The idea of art, something familiar and comforting, seemed to lighten the heaviness in her heart, if only just a bit. Would you like that, Tasha? He asked gently. Yeah, I think I would, she replied, her voice soft but steady. I used to draw my dreams. Maybe I could do that again. Then let's make that happen, Clark said, feeling a swell of pride for her resilience. We'll get you connected with a program, and I'll help however I can. As they spoke, a sense of camaraderie began to form in the room. Clark felt a growing bond with Tasha, a shared understanding of the struggles they faced, both on different levels yet united by the common thread of wanting to overcome adversity. After a while, Linda stood up. I'll step out for a moment and give you two some space. Tasha, if you need anything, just let me know. She left the room, closing the door softly behind her. Once they were alone, Clark leaned forward, his expression earnest. Tasha, I want you to know that it's okay to feel scared or uncertain. What you're going through is really tough. But I'm here, and I won't leave you to face it alone. Tasha looked up, her eyes wide with vulnerability. Do you really mean that? Absolutely, he said, his heart swelling with determination. You're important, and I'm committed to making sure you're safe and happy. You've shown so much bravery already, and I'm proud of you for opening up. It takes a lot of strength. I feel different, she admitted, like I can't trust people anymore. That's understandable, Clark said gently. It's hard to trust when you've been hurt, but trust is built over time, and I hope to earn yours. We'll take it slow. Just know that I'm on your side. As Tasha processed his words, a spark of hope flickered in her eyes. Maybe I can try. Yes, let's try together, Clark encouraged, feeling the warmth of hope settle in his chest. You're not alone anymore. They spent the next hour talking, Tasha sharing more of her experiences, and Clark offering guidance and reassurance. He wanted her to see that there was a future ahead of her, one filled with possibilities and the chance to rewrite her story. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the window, Tasha drew another picture, a vibrant scene filled with colors that seemed to reflect her emotions. Clark watched her work, feeling a sense of awe at her talent and determination. I can't wait to show you what I can create, she said, a hint of excitement threading through her voice. I can't wait either, Clark replied, a smile breaking across his face. You're going to do amazing things, Tasha. I believe in you. After a while, Linda returned, a folder of information in her hands. Tasha, I have some resources for art programs and therapy options. We'll find something that fits your needs perfectly. Tasha's eyes sparkled with interest as she looked at the papers, the fear that had once dominated her expression beginning to lift. Can I really do this? Yes, absolutely, Linda said, her enthusiasm infectious. This is the start of a new chapter for you, one where you can discover who you are and what you love. As they continued to discuss options, Clark felt a sense of relief wash over him. Tasha was taking the first steps toward healing, and he was grateful to be a part of her journey. He had a newfound purpose, to be her advocate, her protector, and her friend. As the day turned into evening, Clark knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of hope. Tasha's story was not over. It was just beginning. And together, they would navigate the complexities of life, one day at a time. Colors of resilience. The weeks rolled into months, and the warm hues of autumn transformed into the crisp air of winter, blanketing Meadowvale in a gentle layer of snow. For Officer Clark and Tasha, the journey toward healing and understanding continued. Tasha had settled into her art program, a vibrant space filled with creativity and encouragement. The classroom walls were adorned with colorful masterpieces created by the students, each telling a unique story through paint and texture. On this particular Wednesday afternoon, Clark stepped into the bustling art studio, a sense of anticipation buzzing in the air. Tasha had been excited to showcase her progress, and he couldn't wait to see the work she had poured her heart into. As he walked in, he was greeted by the smell of paint and the soft sounds of brushes gliding across canvas. "Hey, Tasha," he called, spotting her at a table in the corner, her eyes focused intently on a canvas. Tasha looked up, her face lighting up with joy. "Officer Clark, you came." She wiped her paint-smeared hands on her apron, a bright splatter of colors dancing across the fabric. "I have something to show you." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Clark replied, moving closer to admire her work. The canvas was a whirlwind of colors, blues, greens, and yellows swirling together in a harmonious blend. It was a scene depicting a park, reminiscent of the ones she and her mother used to visit, but this version was vibrant and alive. "It's beautiful, Tasha," he said, genuinely impressed. "What inspired you to paint this?" Tasha beamed with pride. "I wanted to remember the good times, like when we would have picnics. But I made it happier, you know. I want to remember the fun and the laughter, not the sad stuff." Clark felt a lump in his throat, overwhelmed by her resilience. "You've captured that perfectly. It's full of life. You should be proud of yourself." Tasha grinned, her confidence growing. "I am. And I think I'd want to paint more. There's so much I want to say." "Then let's keep painting," Clark encouraged, excitement bubbling within him. "I'd love to see more of your work. You have a gift, Tasha, and I want to help you nurture it." As the afternoon progressed, the two of them painted side by side. Clark hadn't touched a brush in years, but he felt inspired by Tasha's energy. She guided him through the basics, showing him how to mix colors and create simple shapes. Laughter echoed in the studio as they both struggled with their brushes, creating a mess but finding joy in the process. "You're doing great." Tasha cheered as Clark accidentally splattered paint on his cheek. "That's an abstract masterpiece." "Ah, yes, my latest work. The splatter of life," he joked, causing Tasha to burst into giggles. Their camaraderie deepened as they shared stories. Clark talked about his early days on the force and the challenges he faced, while Tasha shared her dreams of one day becoming an artist. The connection between them grew stronger, like the strokes of paint blending on their canvases. After a few hours, the instructor announced that it was time for a group critique. Tasha's heart raced with nervousness, and she fidgeted with her paintbrush. Clark noticed and leaned in closer, his voice soft. "You've come so far, Tasha. Just remember, art is about expressing yourself. Everyone's opinion matters, but what matters most is how you feel about your work." Tasha took a deep breath, nodding slowly. "Okay, I can do this." As they gathered around the central table, students presented their work, sharing the thoughts and emotions behind their creations. When it was Tasha's turn, she stood up, her hands trembling slightly. Hi everyone. This is my painting." She pointed to her colorful park scene, her voice steadying. "It's a happy memory of going to the park with my mom." A few students exchanged glances, some nodding in understanding. Tasha continued, "I wanted to remember the fun times, not the sad ones. It reminds me of laughter and sunshine." As she spoke, Clark felt a swell of pride wash over him. Tasha was finding her voice, learning to express herself not only through art, but also through her words. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Clark cheered the loudest, and Tasha's cheeks flushed with happiness. "You did amazing," he called out, giving her a thumbs up. After the critique, the instructor praised Tasha's work, noting the emotional depth and the vibrant colors. "This is a beautiful representation of joy amidst struggle. Keep exploring those feelings. They'll lead you to incredible places." As the class ended, Tasha rushed over to Clark, her excitement bubbling over. "Did you see that? They liked it. I was so scared, but I did it. I knew you would." "You're so brave, Tasha," Clark said, beaming at her. "This is just the beginning. You have so much to share with the world." On the drive home that evening, Tasha gazed out the window, watching the snowflakes dance in the headlights. "Can we do this again next week?" she asked, a hopeful smile lighting up her face. "Absolutely. This is now part of our routine," Clark replied, feeling the warmth spread in his chest. "I can't wait to see what you create next." As the weeks turned into months, Tasha continued to thrive in the art program. She found solace in her paintings, each piece a step toward healing. Clark remained a constant presence in her life, attending her classes and encouraging her creative pursuits. They often spent evenings together, painting or simply talking about their day. One evening, after a particularly tough day for Tasha, she hesitated as they began to paint. "Officer Clark, can I tell you something?" "Of course," he said, pausing his brush and giving her his full attention. "You can tell me anything." Tasha took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm scared of going home. I mean, I'm grateful for this place, and for you. But what if my mom comes back, and I have to live with her again? What if I can't be happy there?" Clark's heart ached for her. "It's okay to be scared, Tasha. You've been through a lot, and it's natural to have those feelings. But you're not alone anymore. We're working on a plan to ensure you stay safe. But what if they decide I have to go back?" Tasha whispered, her voice breaking. "What if I'm stuck?" Clark moved closer, kneeling beside her. "I promise you, I won't let that happen. We'll advocate for you, and we'll make sure that your needs are met. You have a support system now, and we'll navigate this together." Tasha nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Thank you. It means so much to me. I just want to be happy again." "And you will be," Clark reassured her. "You're taking the right steps. Every painting you create, every emotion you express, is bringing you closer to that happiness. It's a journey, but you're not traveling it alone." As they painted together, Tasha felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. She immersed herself in her work, pouring her emotions onto the canvas. Each stroke became a release, a way to confront her fears and embrace her dreams. Over time, Tasha's relationship with her mother remained complex. The occasional phone call came, filled with mixed emotions: fear, anger, sadness. Tasha would often confide in Clark after these interactions, sharing her feelings and uncertainties. With each conversation, Clark guided her through the labyrinth of her emotions, helping her understand that her worth was not defined by her mother's actions. One day, as spring began to unfurl its warmth over Meadowvale, Tasha announced she wanted to participate in a local art exhibition. "I want to show everyone my work," she said, determination sparkling in her eyes. "I want them to see that I'm not just a kid who ran away. I'm an artist." Clark couldn't hide his excitement. "That's incredible, Tasha. Your story deserves to be told, and your art is a powerful way to do it." With Clark's encouragement, Tasha spent hours preparing her pieces for the exhibition. She painted with fervor, channeling her fears, hopes, and dreams into her artwork. Each canvas represented a chapter of her life, a step on her journey toward healing. Finally, the day of the exhibition arrived. The gallery buzzed with energy as people mingled, admiring the various pieces on display. Tasha stood near her artwork, her heart racing with a mix of pride and anxiety. Clark stood beside her, beaming with pride as he observed the crowd engaging with Tasha's creations. As visitors approached her canvases, Tasha felt a swell of confidence. She shared her story, explaining the emotions behind each piece, her voice gaining strength with each word. "This one is about finding joy in difficult times," she explained, pointing to her vibrant park scene. "I wanted to remember that happiness is still possible, even when things are hard." People nodded in understanding, their faces reflecting empathy and admiration. Tasha's art became a bridge, connecting her to others who had faced their own struggles. Clark felt a rush of pride as he watched her flourish, sharing her story with the world. At the end of the night, as the last guests departed, Tasha turned to Clark, her eyes shining. "I did it, didn't I?" "You did. You were amazing," Clark replied, engulfing her in a warm hug. "You've turned your pain into something beautiful, and you've inspired so many people tonight." Tasha beamed, a sense of accomplishment washing over her. "Thank you for believing in me." "I'll always believe in you, Tasha. You're capable of incredible things. This is just the beginning." As they left the gallery, Tasha felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but she knew she had the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together with Clark, she was no longer just a girl who had once been lost. She was an artist, a survivor, and most importantly, she was Tasha, a canvas of new beginnings. Spring blossomed in Meadowvale, painting the town in shades of green and bright blooms. Tasha's art exhibition had sparked something vibrant within her, a determination to embrace her identity and cultivate her passion for painting. The praise and connections she made that night were still fresh in her mind, and she longed to share her story further, not just within the safety of her art program, but with the wider world. As the days passed, Clark encouraged Tasha to apply for scholarships to art camps and advanced programs. "There's a whole world out there waiting for your talent," he said one evening, as they shared dinner in the small kitchen of her foster home. "You have the potential to make a real difference." "I want to try," Tasha replied, her fingers tapping nervously against the table. "But what if I'm not good enough?" "Tasha, you are more than enough," Clark reassured her, leaning closer. "Your art speaks volumes. Remember, every artist has moments of doubt. It's part of the journey. Just keep pushing forward." Motivated by Clark's unwavering support, Tasha dove into researching local art camps and programs. After days of searching and preparing her portfolio, she submitted applications to several summer programs, her heart racing with hope and anxiety. The waiting was agonizing, but she poured herself into her art, creating a series of paintings that captured the beauty of resilience, flowers growing through cracks in concrete, sunlight breaking through stormy skies, and children playing joyfully in the park. Meanwhile, Clark maintained regular visits with Tasha, becoming a trusted mentor and confidant. They often explored the town together, visiting local galleries and engaging with artists. One day, they stumbled upon a community mural project, and Tasha's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Can I paint on that?" she asked, pointing to a blank wall waiting for transformation. Clark smiled, seeing the eagerness in her expression. "Absolutely. This is a perfect opportunity for you to showcase your talent. Let's get you involved." With Clark's help, Tasha signed up to participate in the mural project. Each weekend, she joined a group of local artists, brainstorming ideas and planning designs for the mural. As they collaborated, Tasha felt a sense of belonging. The artists welcomed her enthusiasm and treated her as an equal, valuing her contributions and insights. One day, as they stood before the blank wall, Tasha expressed her vision. "I want to paint a scene that reflects the beauty of our community," she explained. "Something that shows hope, diversity, and strength." Her ideas resonated with the group, and they began sketching outlines, mixing colors, and preparing for the first brush strokes. The mural soon transformed from a blank canvas to a vibrant representation of Meadowvale, a kaleidoscope of colors, faces, and stories interwoven into a larger narrative. As the mural took shape, Tasha found herself drawing strength from the community around her. The collaborative environment sparked her creativity, and she thrived on the encouragement of the other artists. She painted with a newfound sense of purpose, pouring her heart into each stroke, imagining how her work would resonate with those who passed by. However, amid the excitement, Tasha's relationship with her mother still loomed like a dark cloud. Despite the progress she was making in her life, the occasional phone call from her mother would leave her feeling unsettled. One evening, after a particularly emotional conversation, she sat in the park, the sunlight fading as dusk approached. The memories of her childhood echoed in her mind. The laughter, the warmth, and the eventual heartache. Clark found her sitting alone on a swing, her expression a mix of frustration and sorrow. He approached cautiously, sensing her turmoil. "Hey, Tasha," he said gently, taking the seat beside her. "Do you want to talk?" "I don't know, Clark," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying to be happy, but I keep thinking about my mom. Sometimes I feel guilty for moving on without her." "That's a normal feeling," Clark replied, his tone steady and compassionate. You've been through so much, and it's okay to have mixed emotions. It doesn't mean you care any less. It means you're human. Healing is a process, and it's okay to take it one step at a time. Tasha looked down at her feet, her mind racing with uncertainty. But what if she comes back? What if I have to choose between her and my life here? What if I lose everything I've worked for? Clark placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Tasha, your happiness and well-being come first. If your mother were to return, we would work together to ensure you felt safe and secure. You have rights, and you deserve to have a life filled with love and stability. Remember, it's not about losing your past, but building a future where you can thrive. Tasha took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words sink in. I just want to be strong. I don't want to keep being scared. You are strong, Tasha. You've already overcome so much. Each time you pick up a brush, you're proving that. Your art is a testament to your strength. Embrace that. As they swung in silence, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. Tasha felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. She was not defined by her past, nor would she allow it to dictate her future. The following weeks saw Tasha immersing herself in the mural project, her fears pushed to the background as she focused on her art. The mural began to draw attention from the community, with people stopping to admire the progress and contribute their own stories to the design. Tasha felt proud, knowing that her work was resonating with others. She even began hosting small art workshops for local kids, encouraging them to express themselves through creativity. One afternoon, as they painted, Tasha glanced at the growing mural and turned to her fellow artists. What if we had a community reveal day? She suggested. We could invite everyone to see the finished mural and share our stories. The idea was met with enthusiastic agreement, and plans for the event took shape. Tasha and the group worked tirelessly to complete the mural, infusing it with messages of hope and resilience. As the opening day approached, excitement buzzed through the air, and Tasha felt a sense of purpose like never before. Finally, the day of the mural reveal arrived. The sun shone brightly, and families gathered in the park, their laughter filling the air. Tasha stood beside Clark, her heart racing with a mix of anticipation and nerves. I can't believe this is happening, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. You've worked hard for this, Tasha. You should be proud, Clark replied, smiling at her. Just remember, it's not just about the art. It's about the connections and stories behind it. As the crowd gathered, Tasha took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. Thank you all for being here today, she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. This mural represents more than just paint on a wall. It tells the story of our community, the strength, the struggles, and the hope we all share. Each color and each brushstroke holds a piece of our journey. The crowd erupted in applause, and Tasha felt the warmth of their support wash over her. I hope this mural inspires you to embrace your stories and to know that even in the darkest times, there is always light. Thank you for letting me be part of this community. As she stepped back, Clark beamed with pride, his heart swelling at Tasha's courage. The crowd began to explore the mural, admiring the intricate details and the stories behind each section. Families laughed and pointed out familiar faces and scenes, creating a sense of belonging and connection. Amid the celebration, Tasha noticed a familiar figure standing at the edge of the crowd. Her heart dropped as she recognized her mother, looking worn and hesitant. Tasha's breath caught in her throat, her heart racing with a whirlwind of emotions. Clark sensed her unease and gently placed a hand on her back. You're not alone. I'm right here with you, he whispered. As her mother approached, Tasha's mind swirled with uncertainty. Would this be a moment of reconciliation, or would it reopen old wounds? She felt torn between her past and her newfound strength. Hey, Tasha, her mother said, her voice trembling slightly. I saw the mural, and it's beautiful. Thanks, Tasha replied, her heart pounding in her chest. I wanted to show the good things. Her mother's gaze shifted, her eyes filled with a mix of regret and longing. I'm so sorry for everything. I've made so many mistakes, and I never wanted to hurt you." Tasha felt a lump form in her throat. "It hurt, Mom. But I'm not that little girl anymore. I found my voice, and I'm learning to be happy again." Her mother's eyes glistened with tears. "I see that. I'm proud of you, Tasha. You're so strong. I want to be part of your life again, if you'll let me." Tasha hesitated, grappling with her emotions. "It's complicated. I've been through so much, and I'm scared to let you back in." "I understand," her mother said, her voice filled with sincerity. "I'm not asking for everything right away. I just want a chance to prove that I can be better. I know I have to earn your trust again." Tasha took a deep breath, contemplating the offer. The wounds of the past were still fresh, but the glimmer of hope began to shine through. "Maybe we can take it slow. I need to see that you're committed to making changes." "Absolutely. I'll do whatever it takes," her mother promised, her eyes filled with determination. As they stood together, Tasha felt a sense of healing begin to bloom. It wouldn't be easy, but perhaps this was the first step toward understanding and rebuilding their relationship. In the days that followed, Tasha and her mother began to reconnect, sharing coffee dates and small outings. Slowly, they'd rebuilt their bond, allowing trust to grow gradually. Tasha also continued to thrive in her art, immersing herself in new projects and furthering her skills. She found that her paintings reflected her healing journey, turning her pain into beauty and inspiring others. As summer approached, Tasha received exciting news. She was awarded a scholarship to a prestigious art camp. Clark was ecstatic when he heard the news. "You deserve this, Tasha. This is an incredible opportunity for you to learn and grow." Tasha's heart soared with joy and anticipation, but a small seed of doubt lingered. "What if I don't fit in there? What if I don't belong?" "You belong anywhere you choose to be, Tasha," Clark said firmly. "Just remember to bring your light with you. You have so much to offer the world." With that encouragement, Tasha set off for art camp, her heart brimming with excitement and hope. As she stepped onto the campus, surrounded by other aspiring artists, she felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. Each day at camp was a whirlwind of creativity, collaboration, and self-discovery. Tasha learned new techniques, explored different mediums, and formed friendships that would last a lifetime. She thrived in an environment where her passion for art could flourish, and her confidence soared. By the end of camp, Tasha stood before a gallery showcasing their collective work. The pieces told stories of personal growth, resilience, and hope, mirroring her own journey. As she gazed at the vibrant colors and the emotions captured on canvas, she knew she had found her calling. Upon returning home, Tasha was determined to continue sharing her art with the world. She organized community workshops, inviting children and teens to explore their creativity. The mural project was only the beginning, and Tasha envisioned even bigger initiatives that would connect people through art. One evening, as Tasha sat in her studio, paintbrush in hand, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The struggles, the heartbreak, and the triumphs had shaped her into who she was, a young artist ready to make her mark on the world. And in that moment, she understood the power of her story. It wasn't just about overcoming adversity. It was about embracing her identity, sharing her truth, and inspiring others to do the same. With Clark by her side, Tasha knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they had forged an unbreakable bond, one built on trust, love, and a shared passion for making the world a brighter place. As she painted into the night, her heart filled with hope and possibility, Tasha realized that this was just the beginning of her journey, a journey where art would become her voice, her strength, and her way of connecting with the world around her.